Hey y'all, we're making some fun mosaic art today. Here's a sneak peek. Actually, just kidding. You gotta wait to the end of the video to see how it goes. So first we started by sorting about half a bag of this pea gravel just from the garden center at your local home improvement store. We just grabbed a bag of colorful gravel and started sorting. We sorted wet so that we could see the colors better and to help us rinse off some of the dusty goopiness from gravel. And we took forever to sort. But in the end, we ended up with bunches of... So next I did a little bit of math just to make sure we had enough. I measured out a 4x4 square and weighed how many rocks needed to be on that. And that was 16 square inches and it weighed 75 grams. So based on that information, I was able to measure our workspace and that was 278 inches. So I did a little mathy math, how it is, and was able to figure out that I needed this 1737 times the 75 grams, and that resulted in about 1,300 grams, which we definitely weighed that and just confirmed that we had enough rocks sorted because it was a little hard to tell how far they would go. But turns out we had enough and we were able to start our project. Yay! So after verifying that we had enough gravel, we picked out a frame from our local thrift store, got rid of the horrible art that was in it, and started our project. Brad was particularly hateful of this art, but we liked the frame and that's why we picked it. We wanted a stronger backer than the backer board that came with the frame, so we cut out a plywood board that would be able to hold our sculpture mosaic thing better, simply because it's made out of rocks and it's heavy, and the little flimsy hardboard in the back would not do it. And Brad took out some resentment on bad art. Sometimes you just gotta do it. And it's fun, So we cut that board down to size and got things started. This is our first time doing mosaics, so no promises on correctness of this, but we had a lot of fun doing this. We decided to paint the backer board black to have the mosaics kind of pop off the surface and sort of to disguise the plywood because plywood's ugly. And see, that awful art didn't go to waste. It's great spray paint catcher edging stuff. And we decided we didn't want to do a flat mosaic, so we are kind of making a wavy shape with it. Brad just kind of drew a squiggly line. We cut that out, and then we will use that to help us achieve sort of a waving, wobbly, warpy shape. We just got a new bandsaw, and we are very excited to be using it. It works beautifully compared to our old one. And here are the two shapes, so we'll kind of use both of these laid opposite, and then we're going to put lots of little itty-bitty slats across it to sort of create a wavy shape. So Brad just cut out a bunch of, I believe these are 1/2-inch slices of plywood, just any sort of little thing. Think of like bed slats or something. So a bunch of little things laid along the edge will sort of give us a kind of somewhat even warping surface. We used lots of liquid nails to get that all in place, and also some real nails, well, brad nails, finish nails, just to also hold it mechanically in place. And then just kind of spaced those out and laid them across, filled them in with a couple extra ones that we cut out of particle board there. And in the end, we ended up with this warpy surface, just like we were looking for. The gaps and steps are small enough that we can kind of just fill them in with the rest of that bottle of liquid nails, because a half-used bottle always just goes to waste. Might as well just use it. And then, of course, we had to spray paint that so that it laid in the background nicely and kind of hid. Shaky by Brad. Don't know what's going on there. But yeah, we were sort of short on spray paint, so we just did the best we could with the one can. There's a couple spots that ended up kind of being left out, but we can kind of patch that later, either with more spray paint or just a black acrylic that will match. Always got to make sure that everything fits, and we added these 2 little brace boards to kind of help hold the ribs, sort of. I don't know. The wavy bits kind of can latch onto these, so we have a more sturdy connection to that backboard, just so that this giant heavy mosaic doesn't fall off the surface of the plywood. Gotta make sure it fits really, really well. No wiggle room. We also did a quick tester piece before we started, just to make sure that all of our parts and pieces worked well together and that there were no unexpected problems like glue not sticking to rocks or grout doing weird things or anything. And that all turned out well. So then we felt comfortable enough to begin with our main piece and started laying out the sorted rocks that we had so laboriously separated. We started with a light color on one corner and dark on the other, and kind of gradiated the colors in between, making some, creative choices for where pink and yellow and red were. We found that sticking to somewhat consistent sizes resulted in kind of a more even surface, but we were a little bit limited because, again, these pebbles were all over the place, so we just kind of laid them down and kind of stuck them in there as best we could, and we were super happy with the results. I will say that because we sort of slathered that glue onto the base, it ended up kind of raising up higher than we wanted to and caused a couple things that we needed to fix down the road. But all in all, it was definitely easiest to do it that way. But technically, a better choice would probably have been to put glue on each rock and stick it down individually, so there wasn't like this sea of glue in between. But it turned out fine. Just small note if you try this yourself. And this took us many hours to lay down, but not as many as sorting. It was significantly faster and easier than sorting the rocks, thank goodness. In the end, the gradient turned out super well. It sort of went rather smoothly, and we were super happy with how many rocks we had sorted. We ended up having just enough of some colors and plenty of other colors, but we were super happy with where it went. So after letting that glue cure for about 48 hours, we began mixing up the grout. We're using this acrylic fortifier and just some standard unsanded grout from the grocery store. The acrylic fortifier should help the grout be a little bit more elastic and adhere a little bit more easily, which is helpful when you're working with something that's kind of small and delicate like mosaics. No measurements here, just measure with your heart and go for a texture that's like a thickish pancake batter. Something you can smear on there nice and not have run all over the place, but also isn't hard to work with. Thankfully, the grout had plenty of working time. We didn't run into problems with that at all, so that was nice. This grout was actually left over from when we moved into the house. There was some leftover grout from the people that had renovated it before us, so free grout. All the plywood and the wood scraps was all just stuff that we had laying around. We really only bought a $5 bag of pebbles and used maybe an eighth of it, and then the glue, the adhesive there on the bottom, which we'll link below. I can't remember exactly what it was off the top of my head. But just select a glue that works with the materials you're working with. So we chose a glue that would work with stone. If you're working with something like tile and glass, you kind of want an adhesive that will work with the materials you're working with and will stick to everything involved, obviously. We kind of tried a couple different tools to spread the grout all over the place. We used a scraper and then also just an old paintbrush to sort of get up the upper layer, because the less you have to work with the sponge, the better, because the sponge is very slow. You kind of do one swipe with it and it's so grouted up that it doesn't pick up anymore. So you kind of swipe it, turn it, swipe it, turn it, and then once the sponge is full, you've got to rinse it and repeat ad nauseum. But it went okay. We kind of scraped along, and it was really, really fun to see the colors of the pebbles coming through as we wiped away the kind of monotonous gray. It was super fun to see it kind of coming to fruition, and we were super lucky. We only had one rock pop off in this entire process, and we just kind of grouted it back into place. You can't even tell when it's finished, which was great. So after the initial wiping, we went ahead and let the grout dry, and then came back in with a scrubby pad to help lift the kind of light film of grout there on the surface. I have heard that you can use some vinegar to help you lift that grout off of the pebbles a bit as well, but we didn't end up doing that for this project. You can see here some of that glue is peeking through, and it's like kind of this harsh white. So we're just kind of covering that with a little bit more grout. And this probably isn't the strongest layer of grout, but it was helpful. And you know, gotta do some detail work while you're here. Unfortunately, the green scrubby we used left a lot of green residue everywhere, but that thankfully brushed off really easily, and we used canned air to get it all the way gone. We decided to do a clear coat so that we could see the color of the stones that was, you know, just have it pop a bit, because you know how when you're at a river, the stones are so pretty under the water, but then you take them home and they turn this awful grayish dullness? We wanted the effect of like wet stones because they're so much more beautiful and shiny and colorful when they're glossy. So we found that shellac was the best option for that. With our little test piece, we did test another, like a polyurethane or something, but it ended up making the grout glossy as well, and we did not like that. The shellac kind of soaked into the grout and didn't make it glossy and just made the stones glossy, so we liked that. Here we're just using those kind of backer pieces to mount our finished piece. Again, we let the shellac dry for about a day, and now we're just kind of finished nailing that in all over the place, over engineering the attachment here just because we don't want that to fall off of the wall or off the picture frame because it's heavy. It was at this point that we realized that what we thought was kind of an antiqued picture frame was actually just a very, very dirty picture frame. So we cleaned that up, patched some of the bits of spray paint that had, you know, become transparent or we had missed, just with some black acrylic. Thankfully it matched perfectly, so we just kind of patched all those little imperfections, and look at how beautiful this turned out. This is with the shellac. It's so shiny, but the grout stayed nice and matte, which we were super, super thrilled with. Now we're just mounting it into the frame, just again finish nailing it into the back, and that's pretty much it. We just put everything together and it was good to go. And now for the final reveal. This is how it turned out, and we are super, super, super thrilled with it. And of course, this is when I tell you to follow us on all of our socials. This reel went up on Instagram a couple days early, so you get kind of sneak peeks at what videos are in the works. And as always, like, subscribe, and comment, and come back again in a couple of weeks for our next video. Bye!